this morning.
Hope's Cheesecake.
Oh, really?
It's the best cheesecake.
Huh.
Down there. Definitely would go back.
Somebody's running a horse.
Hi, good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing great.
Not too bad.
Ready? Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to call to order this public meeting of the Board of Johnson County Commissioners on this Monday, June 12th, 2023 at 10 o'clock a.m. Please pray with us if you would care to, and then we'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please bow with me for a moment of prayer, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for the multiple blessings you bestow upon us each day and for the direction you give us and the guidance in our daily lives. Dear Lord, we just like to thank you for the rain we had yesterday and the relief it offered to our crops, our gardens, and our lawns. It also gave us a little time to stay in the house and reflect on you and your loving Son. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance
To the
flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Information technology, approval of contract with BIS Digital, and I guess Chris will explain that.
Chris Williams, IT GIS Administrator. This contract is for the installation of a microphone in the ceiling of the gallery area of the auditorium, just so that if people are unable to come up to the podium, we can still hear them and record them.
When you, is it going to be like in the center? Is it an array type?
No, it's a ceiling tile based microphone. It'll be in the center though. So
And it
should-
will be able to pick up pretty
yes,
well,
yes.
everybody. Okay. Which is just, I guess, in addition to our speakers and everything else we've
Well, it's in
done.
addition to all the other microphones that we have.
Would be good to have for like,
Well, I know there's a lot of people that just speak from the audience and don't come up to the podium and you can't really hear them and they're not really recorded. So
and the other part is if we have like a roundtable meeting or something in the auditorium, we can pick it up for recording down there too,
Yeah.
which would be kind of nice. So I think it's a great idea.
I would move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
All right, thank you.
Do you know when that's going to take place, Chris? By any chance? Not yet.
We'll have to schedule that with the installation.
Thank you very much. I'm sure it'll be a pain to get in there. Recorder approval of addendum to agreement with HF Group.
Good morning. Angel Weiser, Chief Deputy for the Recorder. Do you guys have questions or
We got all kinds of
do
questions.
you? Hopefully I have all kinds of answers.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Animal shelter approval to approach council to request additional appropriations for adoption fee and professional services.
Good morning, Carrie Kletchy, Animal Shelter. First thing is, we have run out of professional services money. I think we have, out of our 30,000, we have less than 500 left. That money is used for spay, neuter, and medical on the animals. So I would like to approach them for another 30,000. This is money that we bring in with fees.
This is what you've used to date so far this year.
Yes.
Wow.
Yep.
Wow.
We've had 950 animals come into the shelter so far this year, and 876 have left. That doesn't include what came in over the weekend, which was quite a few.
Move to approve. Approach council.
Second. Not on the agenda, but I guess that we can do that, all right.
It's on the agenda for, I was on vacation, so I missed it, but it's on the July 12th. I've already submitted it.
of the
November.
council. So it's
November.
July anyway. Have a motion and a second. Any further? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance 2023-0-11, second reading. Any questions?
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I will be out to look at that parking lot expansion. I don't know if it'll be today or not. I just got back. Hi, Betsy.
Hi, Betsy Swearingen, Director of the Health Department.
You had 4 items.
I do.
Yeah, busy.
The first one is to just enter in our normal yearly agreement with the Marion County Public Health Department to spray for mosquitoes.
I looked at what they're proposing to charge for the fee. I got no idea how to calculate that into a total. We used to do it for $10,000 a year. That was kind of a flat amount. Is this comparable to that or? do
It
you know?
is, it really just it's based on mileage, and they pretty much keep the rates the same every year. They're not gouging us in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form. They're just offering a service to us.
And I guess it depends too in part upon how severe the mosquito problem is versus.
Right, I don't believe, I'm gonna knock on wood when I say this, that we have a list right now, so
Yeah,
that's good news. Usually by now, we've got
yeah.
a page full of people that need sprayed.
I know it's cheaper and we could do it ourselves, given. what we
Well,
would have
they
to do
they
to
did
wait.
offer some equipment to us that they are phasing out, but it's not the state of the art equipment. It could have some issues with maintenance and stuff like that. Plus, then you have to get someone that's certified and
The applicator's
and the
license, yeah.
applicators, it just gets into a long slippery slope. And if they offer this to us at a reasonable price, seems,
Yeah, I move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Emergency Operation Plan.
right, this is a grant requirement per IDOH. And it's basically, it's a template, not a big fan. There's parts of it that we are really, really, really good at. And there are parts of it that are not in our wheelhouse. And so as you read through it, you could see, we'd say that we're either working on this part or it's not going to be some part of the plan that we complete. But it just tells you how we handle the 15 core capabilities of public health, emergency response, I should say.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none. all-
Progress.
Yeah. it is.
I'm
all-
sorry.
Work in progress.
It's a work in progress. It always is. I mean, we have, it's actually interesting because we have this EOP in every other separate way. It's just not all together and it's not in their format, so it gets convoluted.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Ordinance number 2023-0-13. Amending and superseding Johnson County Code 16-1-1-1-2 regarding Board of Health fees for death certificate.
The coroner is raising their fees with regard to death certificates. And usually when they do that, it's on a 5-year cycle. That's when we will kind of align ourselves with them. We try to keep it an even amount. It helps on handling cash and change and everything of the sort. So we asked to move death certificates to $20 a piece.
Move to approve.
Second.
Do we need a first and second reading?
Not for
on
this
that?
one.
Have a motion and second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Number 4, ordinance 2023-0-10, second reading, ordinance establishing regulations for Johnson County on-site residential sewage system.
I will second that quickly, so we'll get it done.
You're motioning, right?
Yes.
He's
We got
motioning.
2 seconds.
Yeah. We really want to get this done, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. And Ms.
I got-
Auditor, if you didn't get that, that's motion by Kevin Walls, second by Ron West.
Got it.
Ironically, I had 2 letters today from the problem that we're experiencing over there on Russell Lane and Morgantown Road, and forgot the name of the other street. And I've been working with those people
For years.
yeah,
Mhm.
and I can't come up with a working solution. I'm gonna ask Luke about it here. Him and Daniel had some thoughts on that, but I guess where I'm going with this is if the health department were to declare those septic systems inoperable and it becomes a serious health issue, do you think maybe Orca or somewhere we could get some funding like that from Orca? I talked to somebody about it here, maybe a year ago, and they said, they don't have any funds or something. I forget now.
Old Smith Valley has always been a source of septic unhappiness. And at the times when we did have the ability, when the Barrett Law was still in effect, and we pushed to move sewers through there, there was pushback because there was a lot of overturning of owner occupied to tenant occupied properties. And that the landlords were absentee. They didn't care that these people had standing sewage in their backyard. So, John Bonset pushed and pushed and pushed for it, but the pushback from the residents was greater than what we could overcome. Maybe with the lateral going in, there's more, I guess, connections that could be made. Never hurts to keep looking for grant funds to see what we could find.
In fact, I even brought it up for ARPA funds, and we discussed the potential using ARPA funds. There is a lateral there that services that particular area. There's probably, I guess, maybe 12 residents or so along that lateral. The problem when we went out there, and this is going back to Dan Cartwright when he was working with us here at the county, is that they built privacy fences, and there's a lot of big trees also that have grown up in that line where that lateral is. So it would be a fairly expensive operation to, one, remove the fences, 2, take out the big trees, but something's got to be done. This one poor woman that she authored one of those letters that we had in our mailbox. I've been dealing with her for a good while. 2/3 of her lawn,
Yeah.
she can't even mow it.
Right.
It just.
I know the
stays
property you're
swampy,
speaking of.
yeah. So anyway, we had obviously got to do something, and I think maybe the connection might be through the health department somehow.
We're here to help in any way. So
Okay.
whatever we can do.
Thanks, Betsy.
Thank you.
I'll take it as yes. Was that a motion for approval?
What? Motion for what?
Second reading in this?
I think you made the first
I made the
motion.
first.
We need a second.
That's it.
Okay.
I thought we had that done.
No, did we? Did we vote on
I
that?
have
We
that
voted
down.
on it.
Okay, moving on. I got involved in, and I wanted to give this to Betsy, maybe this be something to the Jim McGough with the IFA. And I'll forward you this email with his contact information, but we had discussions with him about private sewage systems
Okay.
at one of our board meetings for IACC. So I'll forward you this. I know they have monies and funds available for that. I'll forward it to you.
That would be great.
too.
That'd be
That's what
great.
I was looking up. Well.
Okay. Thank you.
I knew I had it somewhere. I just had to find it. Surveyor. Ordinance number 2023-0-12, ordinance of Johnson County Board of Commissioners establishing drainage board petition fees, second reading.
For the record, Greg Cantwell, Johnson County Surveyor. I don't have anything to say.
Well, you did remove that one fee, right?
We did.
I moved to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hi.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Surveyor. Highway ordinance number 2023-0-14. Ordinance amending Johnson County Code of Ordinances, section 9-2-1-2 truck operation prohibited on restricted truck routes. First reading.
Luke Maston, Highway Supervisor. Yes, before you today is an ordinance that would restrict truck traffic on 3 routes on the southeast side of the city of Franklin. These routes are commonly used to connect US 31 south of Franklin to the interchange at King Street in Franklin. In particular, the roads included in the ordinance would be 450 East, Greensburg Road, 510 East, a portion of 250 South, as well as 550 East, a portion of 50 South, and 600 East. Primary reason for bringing this ordinance forward is the damage that trucks are doing to that route. Ultimately, these roads were not built to handle truck traffic. They are still very rural roads. We had, right before Memorial Day, some pretty significant damage caused by trucks, dump trucks in particular, that were hauling and running on that road. So that is the ordinance that is proposed. Be happy to answer any questions.
The only thing I just had, Luke, I think we talked about this, is just notifying Franklin, letting them know that this is in place, so it's not a hidden thing that pops up and hits them in the face. I know they've kind of created this problem for us, but just let them know that this is what we're doing.
I've reached out to the city engineer, and we would need to put signage up within the city limits to help notify trucks before they find themselves on these roads. So we would coordinate sign placement with the city as well.
Well, with all of these type of ordinances, the real issue becomes enforcement. Obviously, the sheriff's department's gonna be responsible for that end of it. I don't know how much time they can dedicate to it, but a lot of times it just takes a few tickets to make the people aware, so. I don't have a problem with it. I've witnessed for years around the county, the destruction of county roads from some of these overweight commercial vehicles. Even proposed years ago, I think, when Terry McLaughlin was sheriff, that we would outfit a couple of his vehicles with scales. And, you know, so we could weigh them on site like the state does and implement the fines and that. So I move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks, Luke. Appreciate it. Appointment of board member to the Nineveh Fire Protection District Board. We have a recommendation for Cole McKnight by Chief Snyder. Oops, sorry.
I mean, the only thing I have a problem with this is, I see that Cole McKnight is a Franklin firefighter. I always like to have more of the general public on these boards than an actual fireman on the boards, because it's, I hate to say this, but it's like putting a fox in the hen house. That's just my thoughts. I'm not against him. I don't know the gentleman. I just, from a application standpoint, I'm not a big favor of putting firemen on fire boards, even other districts. I think we've kind of worked through that over all the other districts and don't have that, but you need some general public business knowledge on some of these boards and not just fire experience, because they'll spend your money.
That's totally up to us on who we appoint. So there is another candidate.
So I don't know. I just wanted to bring it up for discussion and see what you gentlemen thought. So
based on that, I will recommend Kirsten.
I mean, we've had success with this, we've had non-success, so we've had to work through many of these boards. So I will second that and we will go forward with that and see how it goes.
And what was the name again? Kirsten
Kirsten
Last
Larson.
Larson.
Larson. Okay, Kirsten Larson. A motion and second for Kirsten Larson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries. Approval of Title VI plan. I'm missing you, Billy.
I'd like to have Barb give a rendition of all this, if you would, since you worked on this, haven't you?
It really.
No, I'm just teasing. Just. No, I'd move to approve. I know there's been a lot of work
I
going.
know
into
there's a
this.
job opening in Hamilton County if you're interested. I'd recommend it. It pays a lot more. Just saying.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Approval of 2023 Johnson County ADA transition plan.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Resolution 2023-R-6, resolution of the Johnson County Board of Commissioners for the transfer of grant money to the Bargersville Community Fire Protection District.
This is for the baby box, right? I have a problem with this in as much as when it was first discussed and the safe haven contract was brought up and the things within that really put the onus of liability back upon the entity that has the box. Given what we experience, we being a county, that we experience all the time of being named in lawsuits, I would just take exception to even us granting this money. If the health department's got the money and they want to do it, you know, if they want to give Bargersville Fire Department $18,000 to do whatever they want, I would support that language maybe, but in the absence of that, I don't think we ought to be doing a resolution or an ordinance or anything of that nature, which would basically, if they had a problem, if there was a lawsuit involved in the care or even the death of an infant that might be placed in there, they're going to come right to us. We were the funding source. You can say whatever you want, but when we do this ordinance, the county's really funding that. And I think in so doing bears a certain amount of responsibility. And I talked to Adam, you know, here's the thing too, with these safe haven baby boxes, actually the fire department could put their own in. I mean, it's not rocket science to build one of these, basically just an installation in the wall, and then you have monitoring and alarm systems. No cameras, of course, because you don't want to record who's accessing it. But just the construction and installation of it, I think they could do that with a local contractor. But I'm opposed to this simply because the county's going to bear the liability if there's a problem. And that's kind of brought about when Adam reviewed their contract.
Well, and to clarify, instead of, when this was brought to our office, the Safe Haven Baby Box wanted the county to sign off and be a party to the contract, which was the reason why I was concerned about the liability, because it put the onus on the county. In speaking with Betsy and with Bargersville, the idea on the resolution is really just to be the legal mechanism to transfer the funds to them, and then Bargersville would be the actual entity that would be signing the contract with Safe Haven. And it is true, we may get listed in a lawsuit. Regardless, I don't think the county would have much, if any, liability just being the funding source to get the project completed. Obviously, it's y'all's decision if you want to go this route, obviously, but the resolution is really just a legal mechanism that authorize a transfer of funds from our end to Bargersville. And then Bargersville would be the entity that would be signing the contract with Safe Haven.
But the transfer of funds is for the express purpose of installing this baby box, right?
It is, but that in of itself shouldn't create a liability situation for the county where, we're not the ones installing, we're not the ones contracting with anyone to do any installation. It would just be like if the state gives us money, the state's not going to be listed as a defendant in any kind of lawsuit on that end either.
You're better versed at the legal side, but I'm talking from an experienced side, so I would object to it.
We're gonna get, regardless of whether this resolution is signed and it's done or not, we'll get drug into the lawsuit. We always are. They're gonna name everybody. They're gonna name the county, they're gonna name the state, they're gonna name the fire department, they're gonna name the city. And the commissioners are always gonna get drug into it. The position I look at is can we defend it?
Yeah, and I think this would be the least amount of liability we would have. I mean, otherwise, we have even more direct action involved in it, which would probably create more liability if we're involved in installing any of on our own. So.
I guess my question would be though, I asked Heath to send out a notice to all the fire departments and things that there was quite a bit of money in the Indiana Department of Homeland Security for baby boxes. And I guess I'm kind of concerned why Bargersville didn't go after those funds, which would come directly from the state to them for those instead of going through us, especially since I sent that notice out plenty of time.
Betsy Swearingen, Health Department Director. I think they approached us, Edinburgh and Bargersville approached us before Chief Thacker or Director Thacker gave those funds out, and we had already earmarked this money in this preparedness grant because this is the Basin CRI grant, which we cannot give any money back. And so we had set it aside and waited. And then I think that is when that came out from DHS that those funds were available. I'd much rather give these funds towards a baby box than buy more equipment that we don't need that's going to sit in my trailers when this is something that could be used for something good. And we're within 2 weeks at the end of the grant year. And this is why we're in this situation that we're in. And we do have approval from the State Board of Health, of which that's where the funds came from,
Right.
to do this for Bargersville.
And I don't disagree at all with the use of it and how it's being used. And I understand the liability factor and where we stand in that. So
And it's that monopoly that they have. And so you can't,
no, I understand.
Commissioner West, we can't just go and cut a box in the side of a fire. They have this thing just nailed down to just them.
I guess, do we know of any other fire departments that are looking to install these?
Well, I know
Where they could-
White River has one, and then
Edinburgh, I think, was looking at it.
I think
but
Edinburgh's still looking at it.
Do you know if maybe they've tried to utilize those funds from the Indiana Department of Homeland Security at all?
I couldn't speak to that because they still have issues with their alarm system and they have some contract issue problems that they can't reconcile. So I don't know that they'll get to that part.
I just know those funds are available and nobody's using them, and I just hate to see those funds.
I feel like they need to publicize a little bit better. I know
They didn't do well.
I know IFD took great advantage of them, and it was a couple months ago, probably right around the tornado, within a week, they had 4 babies dropped off at 4 separate fire stations. One baby was 3 hours old. So they will be used.
And again, that's, those funds are available. I don't understand why we're not using those funds. And that's one reason I got involved in the SAC, was to be aware of those
Sure.
and that availability. And then you put out stuff to people and then they don't utilize it. Just kind of makes me wonder sometimes, but that's
I think
life,
sometimes
guess.
you don't get your plans in line in time to meet the deadline and stuff like that.
I agree.
So with all this discussion, I think the reward far outweighs the risk on this. So I'm gonna move to approve.
And I'll second it. And I understand your concern.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to the baby box and the purpose behind it. I'm just opposed to the way it's gonna be funded. Because
And
I
I
think
think-
it exposes us to liability. You mentioned four babies were dropped off. Whereabouts were those, you know?
I know there was one on the west side, but I don't know the other three other.
Because I know White
locations.
River's had theirs for several years now. I don't think they've ever experienced anything.
And hopefully that's what happens,
Yeah,
but,
yeah,
but
I mean, that's a good
in the
thing.
chance that it
Somebody
does happen, we
almost
want this
did.
baby to have the best
Probably.
chance ever.
It's close.
Yeah, but they didn't do it. Yeah, and you know, the positive side to this is hopefully that it'll save lives.
Right.
And babies' lives. So I think, again, I understand Commissioner West. I understand the legal aspect of it, but I think we've really maintained that to a lesser degree than it could be. So with that said, I do understand it all, but I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed,
Aye.
motion carries.
Thank you.
Thanks, Betsy. Approval of settlement agreement.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor, say aye. We come out that one, okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed. Motion carries. That's another thing we need to talk about one of these days, is all this stinking insurance and what it costs, and we don't.
Yeah.
And we have to basically fight everything ourselves.
Mhm.
It just doesn't make sense, but. Minimum business claims and credit card.
The only thing that I noticed is, and I was gonna get with the auditor later, there was some charges for motorcycle fuel, and I asked the sheriff about this, I think the last time. And then I saw under fleet that they covered that expense. So I'm just confused because I know the sheriff's department, well, all the departments reimburse the county for whatever their fuel use is, right? Comes out of their line items. So anyway, I'll get with you later on it. It's no big deal, but I just saw that in there. It was kind of a duplication in one sense, but other than that, I move to approve.
I got one question. Maybe I've missed this on past claims. Did we have to start advertising with the Indianapolis Star?
I'd say, well, we had that ad in there and I wasn't sure exactly what we were advertising, but there might be a requirement on advertising that the circulation is X or above. I don't know.
Okay. I don't know. It
Well,
was-
we did, I think, two when it was on some of our ARPA projects. I think the federal guidelines wanted us to have more
Okay.
than just one.
Yeah.
paper,
I just,
so
that's
that's
really
related to
the Star. I
that.
saw they were advertising,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah,
yeah, they would, and it's only $58, but
Yeah,
it just was strange.
yeah, we're not shifting for every notice to
No.
start just. on
No, that's
one.
fine.
A lot of your federal monies will come with those requirements, and state too sometimes.
Yeah.
you know, and as an aside here, I might have to recuse myself. I'm gonna ask the county attorneys on this because under the payment for election clerk election board, my wife's on there. She worked the polls.
Yeah, probably you don't vote on that one.
That first, I'll make a motion to approve.
She's on page 6. She's on page 6 of the claims.
Stay out of this. I'll second that. I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? No, there's not.
No.
All those in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Don't.
Oh, yeah, I was out. I'm sorry.
Commissioner West abstaining. The ayes are Commissioner Walls and Commissioner Baird. Motion carries. Commissioner minutes, 5/22/2023 regular meeting, 5/22/2023 special meeting.
Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, Motion carries. Discussion regarding golf cart ordinance. Do we have anybody here?
Well,
I know Sheriff's been involved in this
Yeah.
somewhat.
I've been involved with this a time or two, where I've had residents up in the northern part of the county, where they were using golf carts to travel around within their subdivision. And I think Doug Cox was the sheriff back when we had a discussion on this the last time, any major
Yes, sir.
discussion on it. I'm all for allowing it within a subdivision as long as there's certain criteria that the sheriff will address that, but lights and brakes and driver's license. And I'm not so keen on the registering part of it. I think that's maybe a not needed entity there, but Sheriff.
Dwayne Burgess, Johnson County Sheriff. I think you have to have some type of registration because of the turn signals, the brakes, to make sure that they're even worthy of being on the road. And I know that Nineveh has just recently, I heard something on the radio because their chief was going to do an inspection. I know that Franklin does it, Bargersville, Edinburgh, but I think it's going to be a lot of work to get it put together, because we're not going to want them on county roads. And when I'm talking the main roads, if it's Smith Valley, Peterman, because they're not going to be up to 35 or whatever the speed limit might be, and just regulating that. The age of the folks that are on those, Major Fisher was dealing with a call this morning. It's an overabundance of these right now that we're seeing in the neighborhoods that I think sometimes they become a babysitting tool for some parents that I've spoken to as well. But I think we just need to really look at it and have a tough ordinance with it. But it's probably time to revisit this.
Would the registration fees, Sheriff, offset some of your additional costs you're gonna have on patrolling some of these and dealing with this on a separate line item basis? Does that make sense?
It would assist. Yeah, it's going to assist it.
I mean, it's not gonna cover all the costs, but I
No.
think
That goes back to my argument that I put forth all the time. I mean, the sheriff's deputies get paid to do what they do. My problem with the registration aspect of it is if a sheriff's deputy has to take time to go to an individual's home and look the card over and all of that, that takes time away from what he could be doing otherwise. If in the absence of the registration, if you get a complaint or if the sheriff's deputy sees a golf cart, and again, I think they need to be restricted to the residence or subdivision in which their address. But if he sees it and he stops the cart and it doesn't have lights and brakes and all of the things we require, then he would issue a citation. So you're going to, in essence, you're going to do the quasi registration when you stop somebody. So doing it in advance, I don't think serves a real purpose. It's more of a hindrance. I definitely don't like it being considered some kind of revenue source, because it would amount to a hill of beans, the money raised off of it. But typically, when we get a complaint, I say we, I'm including the sheriff, and I don't want to speak for him, but when I get it, it's from a resident. He doesn't like his neighbor, and his neighbor's got 2 kids, and he's out on the golf cart running down the street there in the sub. That's the kind of complaints we get. Sheriff, I guess, would have to follow up on that if he gets it. But at that point in time, when the deputy goes to inspect the incident or the complaint, that is in essence would be a registration effect imposed upon the vehicle.
Well, I know that I have friends that, they'll take them to the county park. You have to have a permit at the county park to be allowed to drive it within the campground or the area that we take care of down there. And the folks that I associate with there, they'll have one for Edinburgh, Franklin, and Bargersville, because they may go over to a friend's house, trailer their golf cart there, then they drive around. But it's essentially just showing that for each entity, it's safe to be within that jurisdiction.
Yeah, that's the thing with, if it's registered, would it meet the requirements in other areas?
No, they're
That's-
still going to have to go, if you registered in the county, you're still going to have to go to Bargersville
Yeah.
and get it registered.
Well, but that's the reason I say restricted to the subdivision in which they're residence is, and then that takes traveling to another government entity or location out of the equation. They would then be subject to whatever that municipality might impose on it. What I'm looking for is, we got all those subdivisions up north that people, if they just want to run around in their neighborhood, I don't want to put a lot of restrictions on that.
I just like the registration because it's something that allows us and you know, who's got the golf carts out there, and it's part of the process, and it alleviates the confusion of other folks. You got to go to another jurisdiction and have it done, you know, kind of be within the same parameters of other areas in the county, other cities and towns.
We did a quick survey of some other counties that have passed a golf cart regulations. And a lot of times they authorize it, but then they still kick it to the HOAs to make kind of the final decision if they're even going to allow golf carts in their own subdivision as well. So it could be part of what we do.
I don't know how much emphasis I put on an HOA's involvement, because some have them that are mandatory and some have them that are hit and miss.
Yeah.
Some have them that the treasurer's already left with the funds.
And that could change on the next HOA election too, of who's in and who wants them and who doesn't.
Yeah. Well, whatever we wind up with, I think it's something we need to do, and we need to address it, get the ordinance written, put it in place. Because golf carts or the ATVs are becoming more prevalent. You got them all over the place. I'm familiar with golf carts, you know.
Golf carts, golf course,
Yeah.
Pickleball.
golf. Sorry. It's like I don't want ATVs on the roads either because they're dangerous.
That's what I was
Get
just gonna
hurt.
say. This is just restricted to golf carts.
Yeah, it's going to take some time to establish this ordinance. It's going to be a lot of work to get it done.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we don't get the side by sides and the ATVs, and it gets a little out of hand at that point.
And I've even
Because they
found
go
some
60.
gentlemen, I stopped up on Olive Branch and had a license plate on it, and it was registered.
Yeah.
And I contacted the state police, and it was something that went through the BMV, and it continues to be registered. So it showed up as an electric car.
Thank you, Sheriff.
Thank you.
Good discussion. I'll carry on some more.
You want to keep them up here for the next one?
Yeah, you might as well stay here.
Come on back.
If you don't mind. Discussion regarding amendment to weapons discharge ordinance.
Well,
I get more complaints about this than I do golf carts.
Mhm.
I talked to Adam on this, and I can remember having the discussion. Doug Cox was sheriff at the time, but the gentleman lives on Stones Crossing Road over there by the school.
Mhm.
And we were getting complaints from Forest Lawn or Fort, whatever, not Forest Lawn, the housing addition across the street there. And this guy's
Brent
shooting,
Ridge.
150 rounds every evening or afternoon out there. And the sheriff's department went out, verified that he had a legitimate backstop that he was shooting into. So it met whatever requirements they had. And we discussed at the time, and for the life of me, I thought we had a 300 or 350 foot restriction on firearms in relation to housing.
It's 300.
And then we even talked about something maybe 600 feet or like that if a school's nearby. And I actually thought we incorporated that into an ordinance, but Adam said he couldn't find it.
The last time we had touched our weapons discharge ordinance was in 2011, where we prohibited shooting across any public street, sidewalk, alley, across or upon any public park, public school, or public school property, across the property of somebody else without their permission, or within 100 yards of an occupied structure. So
100
we
yards is 300 feet.
correct.
So that
Yeah,
was where I got the 300 feet, I guess.
right.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I think the issue though is if you have a large property, I mean, if he's in the middle of his property, he might be less than 300 feet from the edge of his property line. So therefore, there's, that part of the ordinance doesn't even prevent him from doing what he's doing. So if if we want to do the property line boundary, just if you're shooting anywhere on your property, they have to get more permission from more neighbors. If we want to extend the boundary out further, it's just whatever y'all want to.
I think what you're saying is a lot of folks that were in the unincorporated areas of Johnson County, White River Township, that's changed. That's where this ordinance is going to be very important to White River Township, because now everybody is building around where they were able to do that in the past. And I think they still have that mindset. And Stones Crossing, I think they were also shooting tannerite. So that may be something you could add to that, because that is
Dangerous.
we were, Commissioner
Dangerous.
Baird and I dealt with a citizen that it was rocking his foundation, the amount of tannerite they were using. And we spoke with the ATF, and we're limited on what we can do.
But we can't ordinance.
Yes.
And I think again, it's worth looking at. And I'm just going to be honest with you, even out where I live on 60 acres, there's people that shoot all around us that it concerns me how close they are. Not just to our residents, but to our property, to where I have grandchildren out playing in the yard. And I think anybody here knows that I'm a gun rights guy. I think everybody every honest citizen should carry a gun, but we've got to start thinking about safety of other people, because some of these other people that are doing this aren't thinking about that.
Educated gun owners, and we've got a lot of uneducated gun owners.
And we do, and unfortunately, it's created some issues. So I think we need to look at that distance from not only residents, but from property lines, because we utilize a lot of our property. And I know a lot of times my daughter is afraid to let our children out in the yard because of the shooting and how close it is. And I have a little bit of fear of it, and I'm as good as anybody about it. There's not enough regulations on how to put in a shooting range anyway. Basically, you're free to, you put up a bale of straw, you qualify, and there's just not enough there. So I think we need to do something. Sheriff, I think it's come to that point. That I'd rather be talking about this than golf carts, to be honest with you, because this is more of a safety issue, I think, than the golf carts, even though they're both probably needed at this point in time. But
Probably
anyway.
since the last time that Sheriff Cox, they discussed this, I mean, just the demographics of Johnson County has changed in all the townships.
Yeah, for me, the issue would come down to if you're going to do target practicing, you would have to have I don't want to say certified, but you would have to have a backstop that met certain requirements as to allow for containment. But even then, the guy shooting a 223 or something of that nature, hell, let that bill, it's going to go for 10 miles. So, 300 feet or 600 feet or all of that.
We probably
I don't know,
respond to
but
4 or 5.
anything we would do to create a more safer environment for people who want to do that. In an ordinance of that nature, I don't know how specific it would be. Let's just say a guy out in the country who wants to shoot a coyote. He's shooting at the animal. He's not shooting into a backstop. So I don't know how,
confusing.
that's where the legal department comes in, the
Right.
sheriff, how you
And
going.
and we can include it. I think there's already
Word.
exceptions for hunting, so you can leave in the exceptions for hunting and,
Yeah.
those types of activities, while still limiting the danger to the public that
Yeah,
potentially an uneducated gun owner or someone who built a backstop incorrectly can pose to, their neighbors and innocent children next door. kind of thing.
Yeah.
So,
We probably respond 4 to 5 calls a year of houses being hit by stray bullets. We've even had to enter the city of Greenwood from someone out in the unincorporated areas shooting a firearm and hitting the house in Greenwood.
And the other side of that is, how many do we not know about?
Yeah, people don't notice their roofs or
Yeah.
siding damaged.
So, which I'm sure is there a lot. I think awareness, number one, and if the way to create awareness is to do something in an ordinance to help create that awareness, that's what we need to do, just to help people be more safe. It makes some really nice containment shooting trailers you can put on your property now, which would be the real proper way to do it if you're gonna do it. It keeps all that exposure away. But They're expensive.
Yeah, and that won't happen.
No.
It won't happen.
Anyway, so thank you, Sheriff. I appreciate
Thank
it. I'm assuming we'll continue discussion on that at a later time. Approval for employee extension of use of vacation benefits.
Move to approve.
I have a
Wasn't it-
motion, but go ahead.
Is it okay if I sit here?
Yeah.
You're fine.
Well, Elizabeth Alby, Johnson County Auditor, and I'm just asking for approval to extend Amy Thompson's vacation time, 52.5 hours. She wasn't able to use it before her vacation time. So she's hoping to get it done by July 31st.
Move to approve. Would that be a second? Commissioner Walls is already
Oh, did he?
done.
Yeah, I just moved. I
He moved.
figured it was a no-brainer.
Before she even discussed it.
Amy does a great
Well,
job.
that'll be
for
a
us.
second then.
I'm just trying to keep her in order.
Yeah.
I have a motion and a second. Any further? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Any public comment, any new business? All hearts and minds free and clear.
Move to adjourn, sir.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. We're adjourned. Thank you very much.